that I put in there.
Looks fine to me.
Okay? We've spoken previously about how we often will kind of jump in for each other as needed, but one of the things as I spent time reading about this and then working with the New Hampshire School Board Association is that it's helpful to have a person or persons assigned so that there's accountability and so that we make sure that these meetings and these committees are covered. And there's more work to come on this, but I wanted to just get this started. And Jerry, did I see your hand go up?
Yeah, on the bus committee, I think James volunteered for that, so you can put his name in there.
Okay, so I wanted to.
But I do mean.
No, I'm glad that you said that because I am interested. So I'm happy to be on it.
So I want to make sure we're looking at the same document. I had, we have the old committee assignments, and then I had this document that has the new assignments. So, for example, budget would be James and Melinda, and then policy would be Jerry and James. Are we looking at the same thing?
I wasn't looking at that one, Jeff, sorry.
Yeah, in my packet, it's a page. In my packet, it's a page that just precedes the old committee assignments, and it's page 5A.
Let me make sure we're all on the same page, literally.
I think Melinda said we need to be on page 12.
I think page 12 is where we need to be.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So if you go to 5A, you can see that second column that says assigned member. Those are the new tentative assignments, and I just wanted to start that conversation. So if folks want to swap or change, that was just based on feedback I got from folks, and I wanted to make sure that we got this done tonight. So I didn't want to take a lot of time with us going back and forth in the meeting. So maybe look at that and just confirm for me if that looks good to you, and if not, we will change it.
Looks good to me.
Great. Okay, so James, it looks good. Jerry, it looks good.
Yep.
Melinda?
Yes.
Okay, great. So again, this we'll make these assignments for now, and then if there are issues or and whatnot, we can come back to it. One of the things that will be coming up later is, as we're looking at goal setting, one of the things I found is our descriptions are not really updated, as I looked at how committees, the best practices, we need to do some work there, but I don't want to take up time now in this meeting. So if we all feel comfortable with this, we can move on. I just want to make sure we're all fully comfortable and ready to move forward. Because one of the things I'm hoping to do is get some committee meetings going as soon as possible. So, okay. I don't think we need a motion to approve this. Do we, Jared?
No.
Okay. All right, great. So, all right. So with that, we can move on. How about instructional issues?
None particularly to speak of there. I think you asked to add math and extracurriculars to the superintendent piece, so I assume there's questions or thoughts around that I can speak to when we get there.
Okay, super. All right, then let's consider personnel actions. We have 3 items this evening. The first being considering the election of Emily Bean as elementary teacher. And so we're looking for a motion there.
Is it possible for us to do all 3 of these in a batch?
No.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to elect Emily Bean as elementary teacher.
Okay, second?
Second?
Any discussion? The only thing I'll say is I just want to clarify that, on here it says 5-6, but I want to just make sure that there's freedom for Erin to move Ms. Bean around if she needs to do that. So I want to make sure that the motion is to elect her as an elementary teacher, so that Erin can manage her as an employee as needed. If that makes sense to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, all in favor? We'll do by roll call. James?
There's a recommendation that I withdraw my motion, and I'd like to remove that we.
I withdraw my second.
Okay.
And I'd like to remove that we elect Emily Bean as elementary teacher.
Second.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So then all in favor?
I agree.
James? Yeah, we'll do by roll call. James?
I agree.
Melinda?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. Next up, we have accepting the resignation of Sonia Porter as physical education teacher. Do we have a motion there?
Make a motion to accept the regret the resignation of Sonia Porter as physical education teacher.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, so James, do we have a vote from you?
I vote yes.
Yes.
Melinda?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And I second your regret there. That is a loss. She's a wonderful teacher for our community. So with great thanks, you say goodbye to Ms. Porter. Okay, and last one, accept resignation of Kathy Byrne as after-school enrichment support.
I'll make a motion to accept her resignation.
Second.
Okay, and just to clarify this, she has resigned as in the support position, but we've already hired her in the other position, so she's not leaving us. She's just can't do both jobs as much as we probably would want her to. So I just want to clarify that for the record and full transparency. So James, any other comments or discussion on this? Okay. James, your vote?
I vote yes.
Melinda?
Yes.
And Jared?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. Okay. Business Affairs, 2024-25 budget status report.
I don't know if there's any questions, but we're working on year-end fund balance, which will be coming in the next month or so here.
Okay. The one question I was looking for is, I know we had money for strategic planning. Does anyone have that amount readily available?
Give me 1 second, I can find it for you.
Thank you.
You have 5,000 currently.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then we'll turn it over to the administrators for a report from both superintendent and the principal.
Yes, you had asked for us to discuss Bartlett Math and extracurriculars. Were there specific questions that you had regarding those two things, Jess, or you want me to just speak generally about where we're at?
So I've gotten some questions from family members of students asking about what would be offered from Bartlett for extracurriculars this year and how that would work, sports in particular. And then, so I wanted to just confirm understanding of that because I couldn't even speak to it. And then the other thing is, as far as math goes, were there any updates as far as offerings for math for our middle schoolers?
Sure. So in the packet, I included the plan for math for 8th grade specific to the algebra piece that we spoke about last time, or a couple of months ago at this point. And we are still actively trying to recruit a math teacher for math at Bartlett. Math teachers are in high demand across the state. In fact, all of us are part of multiple listservs with different schools and districts in New Hampshire, and just today, I think there were 3 or 4 requests for math teachers. Science is another statewide shortage area for sure. So we're still actively trying to fill that position. The good news, trying to find the silver lining here, is we do have a solid substitute that helped us out in this situation last year. So we know we'll be able to start the year with a qualified teacher in there, but obviously we'll continue to advertise and seek someone full-time to fulfill that position. The offerings for math with the adjustment to the 8th grade algebra remain the same as they have in years past. The illustrative math curriculum is being used K-12 for all students all the way through the high school. The specific plan for algebra is our 8th graders at Bartlett will no longer have 8th grade algebra being taught via VLAX, but instead will utilize the 8th grade algebra illustrative math curriculum. And we've been collaborating with the math teachers at the high school to ensure that they are overlaying some of those critical algebra units over their geometry offerings for students who are on an accelerated math track at the high school. So all of that is really positive. Teachers are on board. They're doing a tremendous amount of work this summer, really familiarizing themselves with the new curriculum and really seeing the impact on student achievement as we begin to dive deeper into statewide assessment results from last year. So looking to make a change there for Bartlett 8th graders particularly, just because their experience, as I mentioned before, was quite different than, say, 8th graders at Kennett Middle School. So looking for some positive change there. We just need to find a teacher. As far as the extracurriculars, I'm not sure exactly what the question is. I do know that 8th grade middle school students will be participating at Kennett Middle School for some of their sports offerings. I think in the past that's been done before with a few students here or there participating, just because there weren't enough Bartlett students to have a whole team, for example. That will definitely be happening this fall moving forward. Were there other questions about other offerings, or I just didn't get the questions ahead of time to know exactly what it was you were looking for, so just speaking generally, but.
Yeah, I really, mainly it was just what was happening with it. The big question I've gotten from folks was, are they offering any sports for in the 7th and 8th grade at Bartlett, or are we sending students for everything to Conway?
I know that.
And if you didn't answer tonight, we can maybe just bring it back to us the next time. But I just wanted to make sure we heard from you or from Bartlett, rather than folks just bringing worries to us.
Yeah.
And I couldn't answer. We're not involved day to day over there. So I just wanted to make sure we're get real information for people.
Absolutely. I can triple check with Gretel, but I'm fairly certain that for the fall, 7th and 8th graders will be participating with Kennett Middle School. And then I believe there's conversation about sports moving forward for winter and spring sports, should that be a need. I think in the past it's always been welcomed if, it's a matter of a student being able to participate or not. We figure out a way to make it work. But I do believe, fairly certain that for fall at least, they will be playing with Kennett Middle School.
Super. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have anything? Yeah, Jared.
So we continue to see declining enrollment. Staffing is going to continue to be an issue. I think that we really need to start being proactive about this and trying to figure out how to deal with these problems moving forward. And I'm just going to throw this out there as an idea. I think that we should be having more discussions with Bartlett and Conway about how we educate all of our students K through 12, and how we transport all of our students K through 12 and the kind of co-curricular and extracurricular activities that we offer all of our students K through 12. Because if we continue this trend of declining enrollments and staffing issues, and don't have a coordinated plan in place, I think we're going to find ourselves in trouble in the years ahead. I think we should just be thinking about that and as we move forward as boards.
I think that actually fits in really well with some of the stuff I've been thinking about for goal planning, Jerry. So I'd be eager to hear from you how you might want to approach that either tonight or when we meet for goal planning or at our next meeting.
And I was just going to throw that out there tonight. Maybe that would be a good discussion during our goal planning session. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that actually will lead well into the goal planning topic, but I don't want to, unless anyone has anything else, I don't want to hop over.
Just as an initial thought with me for that, Jess, is kind of, I think that we need to just, at the very least, empower the SAU and administrators in different schools to start having those conversations. And it might not be the kind of thing where we need to be directly involved necessarily as boards, but just making sure that our administrative teams understand that those kind of conversations are important, and that's just my initial thought on it. It's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah, and I mean one of the issues that will come up, especially when we talk about goal planning, is that we now have the board head who has reached out to us to talk about us sending more of our students to them. And I mentioned this in our last meeting. It's not the purview of the high school committee, but when we were there making initial contact with them about the high school topic, the three members that we were talking with threw it out there that Conway's very interested in us sending our middle schoolers to Conway moving forward. So this is obviously a bigger conversation, and I'm very eager for us to have some strategic conversations and to start thinking in bigger picture ways. So I think we're really aligned on that, and how we do that and who does it, I think we'll have to hash out, because obviously if Conway wants our students and if Bartlett wants our students, I don't know how well that will align necessarily, but I think it's a really important topic to bring up, so thank you for that, and definitely something I think we should move on sooner rather than later, and so hopefully we'll sort that out as we move forward. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this? Or anything that Amy just said?
Just one more thing, Just to Jerry's point, we are coming up with alternative plans should some of these positions not, should they remain vacant as we move forward. So we're doing a lot of that collaborative, outside of the box thinking as far as networking with community colleges and things like that to see if they have instructors that could assist us. Just the other day, we were putting our heads together about high school teachers' schedule, and is it, are we able to offer certain classes during certain blocks so that they could be freed up to potentially provide a need in another building. So, nothing is outside of the realm of possibility as far as making sure that we get some of these critical positions filled, but it's not an issue unique to Jackson or Bartlett or Conway. This is a statewide and certainly a nationwide crisis that we're addressing. We were just asked to provide comment to a big union leader article that will be coming out soon about this across the state. But we're troubleshooting all of that just about every day here. Emily Bean is a perfect example of the great work that our educators do, right? A homegrown product that's going to be a great teacher and wants to come back and work in this great area. And so the more people we can kind of bring in and make this a great place to be and to raise a family and all of that other good stuff that goes beyond the benefits of a salary package or compensation is really important to us also. So I'm just trying to be creative here, given that kids are going to come on day one and we're going to figure it out, but we certainly want to make sure they have the best teachers possible.
Great. And just to that, just to like, kind of close this out, Amy, if there are pieces of information that you think could help educate our board as you're figuring things out, I personally would welcome you to share them with us. And I think it's not that I don't think you're going to do that, but I just want to make sure that invitation is out there, because the better educated we are about what's happening, the better we can understand this landscape as we're trying to make more strategic decisions, and the better that we can kind of advocate for our students and for you all as our educators. So thank you for coming and speaking to that tonight. I know it was sort of I threw that at you this week to say, hey, could you speak to that? Because part of it is we're not in the schools, so we rely on you all to give us good information, and because it's a small community, there is a risk that we will hear information from people that, it will be part of the story, but not the whole story. I just want to make sure that we're getting the best information we can for people, and also we have an opportunity to question it when it comes up, because that benefits everybody. So thank you. Okay. How about you, Erin? Do you have any report information you want to share?
I do. I want to apologize. My report did not get in this month. It's my first time in my administrative career that a board report did not get in. I was off sending one of my sons to college last week, so I wasn't able to get it. Thank you. But I do have some updates. I just want to report out that our projected enrollment which can change, is currently 34. A maintenance update, Pat Walsh, our maintenance supervisor, really hit the ground running. He's been doing a great job getting all our inspections up to date. The building is it's not ready yet, but it's in pretty good shape to get going for when kids come. We have some mulch coming next week to finish off some of the playground areas. And our Siemens door project is started, and it will be completed, our door access, before the start of school. So we're excited about that. Just to report out on staffing, our open positions are currently, as you heard, PE, enrichment support, and reading specialist. So I feel really, although we have some open positions, I feel very fortunate. We have the most amazing staff coming back next year for our students, and putting people in the best places. Have a parent letter going out tomorrow, which I will include the board in, just with some configurations, some details about the upcoming school year. So I'll make sure the board is included in that letter. So we are really excited about our staffing, and like Amy said, we continue to be just creative about how we use our personnel to best service our students. So we're excited about that. We're planning opening days. We have a couple teacher workshop days. We're doing some staff meetings. Our staff is going to join Mountainside on one of the afternoons to get an ALICE refresher. School safety is really, in our leadership meetings, as Nina level as well, school safety is really one of our priorities, so this will be a great opportunity to just get an ALICE refresher on one of the half days. We'll be going to the SAU for opening day, and then participating in a Lynn Lyons workshop that we're really excited about. So we're looking forward to opening days and planning. On that note, last year we had fun with our school-wide theme of learning, community, and fun. We did a lot with that. Before we left last year, we picked a new school year theme, which we'll be integrating to things we do. And for this year, our Jackson school theme will be Journey to the Summit. So we're going to have lots of fun with that and incorporating that. We still do lots of learning, community, and fun because that's part of our pledge. But we really enjoyed having a school theme that we could run with. And that's all I really have, unless you guys have questions.
Anyone? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so two big topics for us to talk about tonight. One, we have our goal planning session coming up on August 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. And I've been spending a considerable amount of time talking with the New Hampshire School Board Association. I had an opportunity to connect with Erin today to kind of figure out the best way to manage that. And one of the things I'm eager to do is to be very clear about what it is we expect from that time together. And we have some really big decisions coming our way, to Jerry's point. Not only have we had Bartlett ask us to consider sending our children to them, we have now Conway has asked us to send our students to them. We're looking at this high school situation, and I think all of us who are watching the landscape of education know that, again, to Jerry's point, that we do not want to be sitting back and just watching things happen. We want to be proactive, and we want to be working together collaboratively the best we can in our district, in our community, to think strategically so that we can make smart choices that benefit our kids the best and are fiscally sound. So that means we have to be very thoughtful about how we approach that. So as I looked at what the best practices were and I looked at how it's recommended we do strategic planning, it has become obvious that 2 hours might not be enough time, but it is a good start. And so what I wanted to kind of throw out to you all is that the New Hampshire School Board Association recommended a facilitator to us. And I had one meeting with them because they offered to just kind of help me to understand what would be the best way to approach something for a board that's sort of in our situation. And so, it costs money, so I wanted to make sure that we were very thoughtful about that because I don't want to spend money unnecessarily. But I do believe in having an objective, neutral facilitator for planning purposes when it comes to something like annual evaluations, because one thing I think our board needs to do is kind of look at ourselves and look at where we fit in with not only Erin's goals, but with the SAU goals, and making sure that we're serving our students the best we can with our own personal goals as a board. So it doesn't have to be a super lengthy and dramatic and super involved process, but I wanted to first just get feedback from you all on whether you think it'd be helpful for us to have someone come in and one, do a little bit of education about roles and responsibilities, because that's a question I've gotten quite a bit from people, not only on the board, but from the community, but also just about, how do we clarify the board's and the district's goals and directions? How can we identify some of the aspects of our board performance that we're doing well, that we can improve? How can we effectively plan in a really efficient way? How do we address these areas of improvement or address budgetary needs and address facilities needs in a comprehensive way so that we have actually a plan in place, we have an implementation plan, and we have people that are assigned to it so that we can track progress, much the way, the SEU is doing and Erin's doing. Thoughts on that initially?
I think it's always a good idea to have somebody that's objective lead. We're a really small group, but that would still be fine.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, you kind of said a lot there, so if you're talking about a facilitator for our goal setting session, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. And I did throw a lot at you, so we don't have to come up with full conclusions this evening, but I wanted to make sure we got this moving forward, because initially when we left the last meeting, I thought, we'll just find, we'll get the agenda set and we'll just make this happen. But, even just looking at the committees and getting feedback from folks on what they were interested in and trying to get definitions of what those committees did was challenging because we don't have full clarity. So I think there's some work that can be done on the board side of things to just really fully understand what it is, what's our purpose and what are we meant to be doing as a board, and what do we want to accomplish in supporting, our district and our staff. And we have a new superintendent. How do we make sure that Amy's got a voice in what we're doing and that we're actually working in collaboration and all staying within our roles as well? So would it be worth, I'd like to keep that meeting. I think there's plenty of work for us to do even without getting to the next level, because I think there's just some preliminary stuff that we could do. But would you all be comfortable if I went back and had a second conversation with the School Board Association and their recommended facilitator to say, okay, what would you recommend and how would it play out, and what would it cost if we were to use you all so that we could evaluate the way they would approach it?
I think that's a good idea.
Anyone else?
That's the next step, right, in order to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay, so I will go back and I'll just say, all right, we have a agreement to just, at this point, we're gonna get more information. I'll bring it back to you all, but Aaron and I will keep moving forward, working together to get you all information so that we'll still meet on the 29th, and we will have a purpose for that meeting to move some of this stuff forward, at least to get some of the preliminary planning done for how we're gonna approach goals and a general overview, with the idea that, you know, if we have feedback by then from these people and we have something to give you, I will have that. Otherwise, we'll have something else to give you. You'll be shocked. I'll have something to say. Either way, does that sound good?
Jess?
Yes, okay. Yes, Jerry.
I guess I'm just confused. Are we having a goal-setting session on the 29th or something else that hasn't been defined yet?
I would like to, the purpose is to have a goal-setting session, but one of what we are defining for the goals might change, because at this point, it is not just goal setting. We need to kind of figure out what is it that is on our radar as far as goals. So it will be goal setting. So, for example, Jerry, I'd like to send out to you all the materials from the New Hampshire School Board Association about what is it that we should be thinking about each year. For example, many boards do a self-evaluation each year as they plan for goal setting. I don't know if we've done that. I don't know if we want to do that, but I would recommend that, because I think setting the goals involves us knowing what we need. And one thing I have heard from folks is that, for example, they would like clarity on what our roles and responsibilities are and how could we be a more effective board. So, and our own experience last year, we spent a bit of time having that conversation. And so part of why I wanted to get a neutral party who was actually an expert in this to guide us and to get information was to make sure that someone who knew more than we did could come in and say, okay, well, actually, you want to spend 15 to 20 minutes. One, you want to send out information ahead of time so people read the materials. Number two, you want them to come in with this, have them brainstorm this so that they themselves have ideas about this. Then you come in and we spend 15 minutes on what is it that we want to incorporate from this aspect of it, or what are the most important things. If you had to rate these 10 things, please rate, however they want to do that. I mean, there are methods to doing all of this. So the short answer is I would like to do goal setting because we need to set goals each year, but we actually have some work to do in terms of doing it properly. I mean, to do a proper goal setting section, I don't think fits within 2 hours. So what I'm trying to do is get the process started, but I don't think it will be completed necessarily within 2 hours. And I don't want to be rushed into making decisions because we've put an arbitrary time limit on things. I think our students deserve more than that. So I want to make sure that we're in agreement on what is it that we really want to accomplish. So the first goal will be, what actually do we want to accomplish in this session, in this planning process? And part of it is we have to think about that.
Jess, can I ask you to clarify something that you said, arbitrary timeline? Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Say that again?
You made the statement that you don't want to go by an arbitrary timeline, and I'm curious as to what you mean by that, because I'm confused by that, because our timeline isn't arbitrary as far as what our role and functions are.
I mean an arbitrary timeline of, right now we have from 5 to 7 p.m. on August 29th. Oh. I don't want us to say, okay, we have to have it finished by 7 p.m. If we're not done by 7 p.m., I want to say, okay, well, we got this far, but we still have these 3 tasks to do, and we've decided, okay, these people will take, let's say, for example, we say, okay, well, we really need to get a comprehensive plan for evaluating middle school as one example. Okay, let's figure out who will manage that, how will we do that, what will we do as far as timeline and moving forward. I don't think we can wrap all of that up in one evening, but we can certainly say, okay, well, we know we want to make a plan for that, so let's get that goal situated. So, okay, and then we're going to say, let's get to the next thing. So that's just one piece of what might be a bigger plan. or maybe we don't say we want to just look at middle school. Maybe the board is going to come together and say, oh, well, we want a comprehensive K through 12 plan, right? That's going to look very different than simply looking at the middle school. But we don't know that because we haven't met yet to even talk about how we want to approach them. So when I say arbitrary timeline, I just mean I'd like to get started. I'm hopeful we will get very far. I'm hopeful I can get information from someone outside of us before then, and we could possibly have a guided facilitation that night. If we can, I will come back to you all, or if information comes in, we'll change the way we do things. But I don't want to say we're only having one goal session this year, and if it's done at 7 p.m. that night, we're done with goal setting for the year. Now, if the board thinks that that's wrong, and we're just going to have one session, and the majority of the board says, no, that's how we're doing it, obviously, I'm one board member. So I can certainly be outvoted on that, which is why I'm bringing it up.
Just James has his hand up.
Thank you. I'd like to suggest that we meet on the 29th, and we can hear more about what the New Hampshire School Board Association recommends and has to offer. And if there are, if more parts of the process need to be planned, we can continue that conversation as part of our work on the 29th.
Okay. Melinda, do you have anything you want to add, or anything, questions or anything?
No, I completely agree. I mean, obviously, if you have a 2-hour meeting and you don't finish your tasks, you have to then plan another meeting to finish the tasks.
Okay, so I'll just do my best to get as much information as I can. If for some reason it does not make sense to meet on the 29th, I will be in touch as soon as possible. But just speaking to Erin today, I think we have plenty that we can do, even with what we've got from the New Hampshire School Board Association at this point. I'll obviously reach out immediately to see about what a facilitation might look like, how that might be structured, what that might cost, and I'll bring it back to the board, obviously, because we make decisions together.
Jessica,
Yeah.
I think we should meet on the 29th regardless. I think we really do need to meet, even if there's not someone to meet with us. Let's just get started and,
Great. I appreciate you saying that. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I think one of the issues we can run into as a board is we don't get the time to think and talk strategically. So great. So let's just keep this, and we will look for materials from me and working with Amy and Erin. Sound good?
Yep.
Great.
Okay. And if anyone has items that you want to send to me, either for an agenda or anything like that, obviously, I usually prompt people to send things in. Please do that. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the committee reports. Right now, our big item here is the high school planning committee. So the committee just met, and I think we've got some committee members here. So if I miss anything, please jump in, or if anyone was there and wants to clarify anything, please let me know. But generally, the main points from that committee were that we received some very helpful feedback to the rubric that was shared, and we received feedback both through the digital means of that survey document that we had sent out, as well as some in person and actually some at the meeting. So how the committee is moving forward facilitating this is that Nicole Goff, who is the main committee member managing this rubric, she actually has added a tab on the rubric where she actually has put the rubric feedback so that everyone can see it. Make it clear that that's all public comment. So the comments come in and they've been shared. They'll be a part of those minutes. And what we're doing is, as we can, we're incorporating them and adding them. And at this point, within the next couple of days, it should be a pretty complete rubric with the modifications that were made. And then we'll be using that as the board voted last month to move forward with both Freiburg and the Conway School District. And Michael and I were both really both grateful and impressed because we were able to have a very positive, helpful initial meetings with both Freiburg Academy and with Conway. We were able to kind of explain where we were coming from, how the committee was meant to be a facilitation committee, and that at this point we were just establishing contact. And so we explained to them that we were going to be looking for some information via these rubrics, and that we would really like them to be able to kind of speak for themselves and to share information from themselves right to our community and right to these rubrics. So they were very receptive to that, and they said they would be happy to do that. So one of the big pieces that are for this board to consider right now is that both Freiburg and the Conway School District, in the form of Kevin Carpenter, who's, as we know, is the principal of the Kennett High School, as well as Joe Littensdale, who's the new director of the Career Tech Center, they all are eager to come and speak. So the committee recommends us inviting them in September, either on one evening or on two separate evenings, generally around 6:30 p.m. And if we can offer child care so that we give people the opportunity to make sure that they can attend, we would like to be able to open up questions via sort of the format that we had this month with the rubric, because that worked really well. Allow the public to send questions in ahead of time, and then we can have a facilitator there on the evening when each of the presenters speaks, so that we can make sure that the things are presented in a fair way, and that both leaders, leadership are at sort of the same questions, and we can videotape them so that they can kind of like share what they're all about, however they want to do that, and we can kind of go from there. We're clear so far?
Yes.
Yeah. So the big question that we sort of grappled with is, do we have them come on separate evenings, which would allow for, someone can't come on one night, maybe they can come the other night, but it does spread out the time so that, you have to attend two meetings, or do we ask them to come on one evening, which might make it more efficient, and also maybe they attend at the same time so they can be asked the same question right in front of each other. How we left it with the committee was that maybe the board could kind of weigh in on that, and you all might have some input so we could kind of make that decision. So, any thoughts on any of that so far?
I don't know, I sort of think maybe 2 different nights. Would one school feel a little funny talking in front of the other school? I don't know. Or is it a good thing to have them talk together when they're both there? I just can't wrap my head around it.
I like the idea. I agree with Melinda. I like the idea of 2 separate nights. I think sometimes if it's the same night, sometimes things can blend together. I think also there's the opportunity for the community to learn about questions that they wanted to ask. If you have 2 separate events, whereas if it's all on the same night, people don't have that opportunity for reflection and for learning in between the events. And I think it's a lot of time to ask of people to potentially be there for 2 full presentations. Meaning 2 presentations back to back, rather than 2 separate nights that are potentially a shorter engagement each time.
Okay. So I'm hearing from you two that 2 separate nights might be better.
Yes.
Okay. Jerry, you have any input?
No.
Okay. Okay, so how we left it with the committee was if there was thoughts on one night versus 2, maybe what we could do is go to the 2 institutions and just see, could we make it like the 16th and the 19th? Or something similar to that, with a 6:30 start, and give them an opportunity to speak. I don't want them to speak for too long. I would like to give them some parameters to speak, but we can kind of sort that out. But if there's input on that in terms of format, or if you have feedback on the question, the format of the way we handle the questions, we really just want to make sure that everyone feels welcome in our community and that they are given a fair chance to speak and that they're given a fair chance to answer questions, and then folks in our community are given an opportunity to ask what's on their mind in a way. But we also want to just make sure that we are just letting people get a chance to think about things as well. So, we give them a chance to ask questions ahead of time, as well as, maybe a couple days afterwards or a week afterwards, if that makes sense.
Jess, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm just curious if the committee plans to provide both schools with just a framework of what they'd like covered. I worry that just for efficiency's sake, if folks are coming out for 2 meetings and, you leave the meeting, you're like, oh, they didn't even talk about that, but this other school did, or vice versa. I just wonder if it might make sense for the committee to consider just giving a framework of here are the big picture pieces that we want to ensure you speak of, just so that you're not having to go back and bring them back in for subsequent meetings or those kinds of things. These folks are in both groups really busy, and I think they want to make sure they're as thorough as possible, but some sort of a framework might be helpful to both.
That's an excellent point, and we would definitely make sure that they were given some guidelines about what to speak about, because part of it is we want to make sure that it's substantive also, and not just sort of just highlights of why, we want to make sure that there's something concrete for people to leave with, and we do want to make sure that they can speak to the same things. So that's a great point, and we did speak to that at a previous meeting, and the idea would be that they would be given sort of a general idea of what we would be looking for outcomes, and how they format it or what they want to do would be up to them. But yeah, and we also want to make sure that we let them know, we want it to be no more than an hour, this amount of time for questions, please, you can speak for, something like that. So that's a very good point. Anyone else?
Yeah, Jess, I'm sorry.
Is that Peyton?
It's Pam, yes. Your owl's not moving. It's not recognizing me. I'm just sitting here thinking, James spoke earlier about equity, and I think there is the need to consider all of your family's needs in Jackson, and the thought of leaving the house twice in 1 week in the evening is maybe unrealistic for some to have to navigate through childcare, through work commitments. I think that some families will have an easier time doing that. So I urge you to consider the equity that you're setting up. I think it's very fair to have multiple representatives of schools, and perhaps you split it up. One does the beginning and one does towards the end of the meeting. I think there are other ways to do it that may be more equitable for your entire population here in Jackson.
It may be something to consider if you're doing it on one night. You have one group come in, there's a short break, refreshments, whatever, just to break it up and then let the other groups start. I think that would be maybe a way to do it as well.
Okay, and that was an idea that we had tossed around at one point. You could start at 6:30 and then have a break. Give them some space. Equity is definitely on our mind. And what I was one of the things we were thinking about with childcare, and the idea of having the ability for people to access it from home and to watch video or things like that. So we'll have to make a decision about that. As far as moving forward, we do need to make a decision. Ultimately, I think it needs to be up to the board. So, and we do want to move forward. So, do we need more information to decide on whether to do 1 night or 2 here? I don't want to get caught up in going too far down this rabbit hole. In the end, I definitely would not want to do this multiple times, but we do need to get this information. There is a need to get it sooner rather than later. So whether it's 1 night or 2, the the folks were sending 2 nights, they were concerned about, can you leave the kids for that long? So, especially if there's a break in between, that might end up being a 2.5 hour or 2 hour and 15-minute evening. So, and it starts at 30, that runs into bedtime. So that topic came up as well. Board members, what do you think?
I think there are persuasive reasons to favor either approach, and to the extent that you would prefer that the board makes a decision, would you like to just call for a motion
Yeah.
and we can vote on it?
Yeah, let's call a motion. I mean, no decision is going to be perfect, but we do need to move forward. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question first? Do the meetings have to happen in the same week? Can they happen one week and then another week? Does it have to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We could, maybe what would you think about this? Perhaps I could reach out to the leadership that said that they'd come and speak and see what their schedules look like. Because I also want to accommodate them in that it's back to school, and we want to be sensitive to the fact that they're doing their best to meet us where we are, which is that we're asking them to come and speak right when things are quite hectic for them. So would it work for everyone if I try to balance all of this and work with the folks that are coming to speak, and as well as what the schedules look like? I'll also balance it with the Whitney calendar to see about when we can get people in there, and also when can we get childcare to watch folks, right? And when can we make sure that we've got an opportunity to kind of pull all these things together? Would that work?
That sounds good.
Okay, with the idea that we'll target sort of the 2 weeks, one of the nights we try to make it the 16th of September, because we know we have a meeting that night, and I already know that at least one of them can make it, if not both of them. And then we'll talk to them, and we'll just be honest about it and say, this is what we're looking at. Maybe they even have opinions about it. Maybe they want to come on the same night. Great. I just want to make sure that they understand that we're trying to be as thoughtful and careful with them as well. We understand that this can be a bit awkward, but at the same time, we want to also make sure that we're leaving this process with everyone feeling as good as you can with the challenges we're facing. So, okay. So,
Can I ask one quick
you will
question?
come.
Does that mean we don't have a board meeting on the 16th? I'm so confused.
We don't have a board meeting on the 16th?
Well, if we had this meeting on the 16th, does that then mean we don't have a board meeting? I'm just asking.
I think we would, likely what we would do, in the past, what we've done is have sort of an expedited board meeting where we would look to see what decisions needed to get made that night, and we would sort of move, maybe we have a board meeting from 6 to 6:30, and then the speaker would come in at 6:30. But I would, Amy, do you have an opinion on that? Do you have a thought on that?
No, I don't have an opinion on that. I just know that if you're asking for calendar schedules, if you want representation here from SAU, our calendars are pretty much every night of the week, unless there's already a meeting scheduled, so.
Okay, got it.
No, and that's the other thing. I do want to make sure that we've got you there. I want you to be as able to participate as you can. So, maybe we can, that's another thing I want to make sure we balance, right? We just have a lot of plates to keep in the air here. So, Amy, maybe you and I can get together and look at that. We'll look at the Whitney calendar. We can talk to the folks that are involved and see when we can make this happen.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I don't want to move away from the meeting conversation, but I just also wanted to mention that if there are some questions that the SAU can answer, unrelated necessarily to a presentation made by either school, happy to spend time doing that. I know transportation, for example, there was some information gathered about that. I would argue there's a whole lot more to consider when talking about transportation that I can definitely provide more in-depth information on, or at least point folks in the right direction as to who to speak to, just so that information is taken off of the plates of either school, right, and just provided as just a point of reference moving forward.
Great, and I think the hope is that we will be able to gather a lot of that information through the committee or the board. So we will hopefully work with you to do that. That was one of the conversations we had about not overwhelming the leadership with having to do all of that, and making sure that the questions we give them are pertinent to them, and we own the stuff that we need to own. So I think, Jerry, I saw your hand go.
Yeah. This whole kind of conversation kind of just indicates to me that this board's not prepared to have these kind of conversations yet, because we've got a lot of basics to learn before we can start talking to schools and to the community about these things. And I'll try to be brief here. But I think until we have that kind of discussion with the New Hampshire School Board Association about what our options actually are, and I've been saying this for 2 years now, and what I mean by that is legally, what are our options? Like, where can we send our kids to school, and how can we contract with those school districts in order to facilitate that? We don't need to talk to Freiburg or Conway to have that understanding. We don't have to talk to Conway or Freiburg about transportation. There's lots of things, there's a big learning curve that this board needs to learn before we start having the conversations about what do they offer for AP courses, and that kind of information. Again, I've been saying this for 2 years, and I know it's getting old, but I've reached a real level of frustration with this. We've gotten nowhere in 2 years with this whole high school options discussion, I'm really confused about the things you say in regards to how we bring people in, because in one breath you're saying that we need to ask them the same questions, and then in another breath you're saying that the community gets to ask whatever questions they want to. Well, that's not going to be the same questions, and we can't even decide whether we're doing this on one night or 2 nights. I'm just really confused about all of it, I guess. I'll leave it at that. Other than to say that as far as being on the high school options committee, I'm done with that part. I'm no longer going to participate in those discussions anymore. If another board member wants to step on, great. If not, I don't really know, but I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. So moving forward, we will work with them. Amy, I can work with you on scheduling them, and we can get that finalized, and we'll make sure we get those dates in the calendar. And then Jerry actually brought up a wonderful transition for us, which is that we have been in touch with the New Hampshire School Board Association, and they are very eager to come and speak with us. They actually have addressed these issues that we're dealing with a number of times, and felt like they could come and speak with under an hour to the community to kind of explain things, to answer any questions, to inform folks. So I wanted to just check with the board. The committee felt like October would be a great time for them to come. So if that works, I'd like to get them scheduled and invite them here to do that. Are we, how are we with that as far as the board goes?
That sounds good.
Okay. If that would be a thing where we would have it on a regularly scheduled school board evening, and we would look to maybe start our school board meeting at 6, and we'll have to see when they can come, whether they come at 5 o'clock or at 6:30, but we'll make sure that we record the event and share that out, and we'll make sure that people can send in questions. They've been very good about taking questions, and we can process questions for people, as they come in, so that people will have access if they can't make it that evening. But we definitely want to make sure that we move that forward as well. So, all right, anything else as far as that goes?
Jess, do you want me to say a few words about the question about busing?
That would be fantastic, sure.
Okay. I'm passing out the information that I have. There's a handout with 3 pages on it. The first 2 pages are the bus schedules from our 2 great Jackson drivers, Doug and Ryan, from last year. If you look at the SAU website, those schedules have been taken down, and I don't have an explanation for why that's the case, but these were the schedules from last year. On the 3rd page, I have a Google map with a potential route, and I just envisioned whether it seemed like it would be realistic to add an additional stop after Kennett High School. The existing stop in the morning is scheduled at 7:15 a.m., which corresponds to Kennett's start time of 7:30. Theoretically, that same bus could continue on to Freiburg and drop students off at 7:32 in time for the start time of 8 o'clock at Freiburg Academy. And then there's also, I don't want to rehash information that I went over before, but it seems feasible that we could transport students back to Jackson in the afternoon after school activities if Freiburg, if there were students who were interested in going to Freiburg Academy. I don't think that that would require an additional bus or an additional bus driver, but rather just an add-on to the routes. I do want to acknowledge, thank you, Amy, for offering to provide a little information. As I was trying to collect this information, through the school, I tried to get to talk to Ryan and Doug, and I was told that the bus drivers don't talk directly to board members and referred instead to Gretel or Jim or you, Amy. So if there's an efficient way for the board to get information, I would love to be informed and to hear any more information offline about how we can get the best information to make the best decision about transportation.
Jess, would you like me to comment? Yeah, it doesn't have to be offline. I think we want, obviously, to go to the source who has the most detailed, up-to-date information. In this case, that would be the transportation coordinator, not individual bus drivers. The information here, while it may be feasible to add an extra stop, there's a whole lot of other things to consider that the driver wouldn't be aware of, such as May term offered at Freiburg Academy, where the children are on a completely different schedule for the entire month of May, or the field trip that happens at the elementary school level here in Jackson, that would require a bus getting from Freiburg here earlier so that it's ready to roll out for the start of an elementary field trip. Or the one bus driver in Jackson who's taking elementary school students on a field trip who might not then be available for the high school route. Or the fact that Kennett High School starts a delayed opening for their PLC times and the schedule on a Wednesday is different. So we are happy to provide any information that we can in the most efficient and accurate way possible, but it really should be channeled through the SAU when there are SAU-related questions, just so that we can ensure that information being provided is accurate and that all of those factors are considered. And again, like, I don't work for Conway, I don't work for Jackson, we work for the SAU, and there are SAU-wide positions that can provide that information and have that readily available versus, I mean, our bus drivers are amazing, I totally agree with that point. But they don't necessarily have a solid understanding of all of the factors involved other than, you know, they do their job really well, and that's what kids do for Jackson.
And so, Jess, if I may, it typically the way that we would go through this is, you know, the subcommittee, the bus subcommittee, being James, would have a meeting. It would schedule a meeting with the transportation coordinator at the SAU and whoever else there would be, you know, able to attend that meeting. And you would be tasked with asking the questions. You wouldn't, you'd want to go like, what's our, we would want to say, I guess what we want to look at is how do we transfer, we're looking at two things. If we opt to send our kids to Freiburg Academy and not Kennett High School, what does that look like? And so it would be the SAU's transportation coordinator to start to figure that out for us. And it might take 2 days, it might take 3 months, I don't really know, but we'd have to initiate that process. And then the other question that we want to ask is, if we opt to send our kids to Kennett High School, but give parents the option to Freiburg Academy, is it possible to bus our kids to both places? And we start there. That's the question that we ask, and then we develop information from that task. There really is no other way to do it in my mind, but That's how we would do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Jerry, and as I understood it, the task that I had was to kind of, on a high level, determine whether it was patently unfeasible. But certainly, I think your suggestions of nailing it down are good ones. You know, and Amy, thank you for kind of fleshing out some of the details, and I agree that to actually create a bus schedule would be extremely complex. But I want to provide the community the context that, you know, because it's so complex and because as an SAU we're constrained somewhat, you know, the way that Bartlett Middle School has chosen to deal with this problem, at least for the after-school activities in the fall, is to proclaim after-school activities extracurricular, so transportation is not guaranteed. And so I think that we should all also have the perspective that while we strive to have a perfect solution for every kid on every day, what we're dealing with in the real world right now with the SAU is the imperfection of trying to do our best.
I personally don't understand what that means. I don't need an explanation. I just say I don't understand what you're talking about. So.
I'm talking about the fact that the bar for providing every student transportation in every situation at the SAU is not perfect. And so I think that as we as a school board are trying to plan, we should understand that.
I guess I don't understand what that means. Are you saying that the SAU isn't perfect at providing transportation?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, I guess I'm confused by that statement because I don't understand what that means because.
Okay.
there-
All right.
What it
So-
means, Jerry, is that if there are criticisms about the process that I engaged in, because it wasn't perfect and it didn't envision every variation of the schedule, maybe that's not the most important thing for us to focus on right now.
And I guess who was criticizing me? You're saying I was criticizing you in my statement?
I think you were.
No, all I'm saying is that there's a way to do a process and we haven't initiated yet. You perform your task very well. Like it's
Okay, I'm going to jump in here so we can get back on track. I want to just say thank you to actually all three of you because I think, James, you did a fabulous job of initiating this and getting us started. And I think Amy, you brought up a really good point, which is that you are available and you are here. And Jerry, when you engage, it's fabulous because you know a lot about how things can work. And so one thing we can do, and this is why we have a committee that's meant to facilitate things, and taking initiative the way James did and getting this started allows us to have these conversations so that we can start to get out ahead of things and gather the information. And so I personally was blown away by how much information you were able to gather so that people can start to think about them in a genuine and real way and question things and understand them. And so let's just talk for a minute about what might be the next steps as far as this goes. One thing I'm wondering is, Amy, you made the offer. James and Amy, do you think you can kind of touch base? Because James, you're also the bus committee. Can you two collaborate to move forward as needed? And, James, maybe you just reflect on tonight and see if there is anything more at this point. And if there are board members that need to get clarification or information, send it to James and we can move forward that way. Does that work?
I think that sounded great, Jess, but I think just, James, I honestly wasn't criticizing you. In other words, in order to start a conversation and to try to figure out where we break things, we have to come up with ideas, right? And it wasn't the SAU that decided that we're going to pick up kids, we're going to provide busing.
Jerry, excuse me, Jerry.
Jess, can you just
Is
let me
this
finish
the
a
point?
statement here? Yes, there's a point to this. Why do you interrupt me every time I try to make progress as far as what our roles and responsibilities are? James is under the understanding that the SAU has decided Gissing for busing. I just wanted to clarify with him, it isn't the SAU that decided that, it's the Jackson School Board giving the directive to the SAU that decides those things, not the other way around.
Yes, and the topic that we're discussing right now is transportation update for the high school committee. So you're welcome to put the SAU's decisions or the Jackson School Board's decisions about transportation on an agenda item, and we can talk about that as much as you want. But right now, we're talking about an update
But Jess,
and what to do as far as moving forward with
Jess,
that.
if we decide that we're not going to bus our kids to high school, we inform the SAU that, and then they come up with a
We're
plan.
not deciding that, Jerry. That's not even before the board right now.
But that's not my point,
That's
Jess.
not before the board right now.
All right, whatever. Jess, I really get frustrated, but for 2 years, every time I try to just have a discussion about what our roles actually are, you don't want to have that conversation. You want to talk about rubrics that you can't even define, or decide on one night or two that you can't even make that decision.
Jerry, I've only been the chair of the board for a few months, so I'm going to leave that there. To the rest of the board, are we ready to move on from this?
Yeah, thank you.
You were all-
And Amy,
Okay.
I'll connect with you. Thank you for offering some more
Okay,
detail.
and I do want to make it clear, if anyone wants to get items on the agenda, I do send out something every month. You are welcome to get items on the agenda that you feel you need to discuss. We can also modify the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. So, okay, is there anything else for the high school options committee as far as updates? Okay, well, with that, I want to just make sure we're clear on next school board meeting. Right now, we're scheduled for September 16th at 6 p.m. with a high school options committee meeting beginning at 5 p.m. right before. And with that, I will turn it over for citizen comments. Are there any?
Michael has his hand up.
Hi, Michael Jackson. There was a comment earlier about getting a fuller picture about sports at the middle school, Bartlett, and they said, oh, any information would be helpful, so I could spend 30 seconds and just let you know what's happening in the fall if that's okay. As far as I know, there's currently not any sports being offered at Bartlett. I have not seen any surveys or queries asking families or students if there's going to be any sports this fall. Last year I was told that happens in the spring. It happened in the spring, I missed it. And it's very possible it's going to happen at the start of the school year. The school hasn't started yet, it's possible to happen then. We were given a notification that middle school students can participate at Kennett Middle School. Super grateful to Kennett Middle School for that opportunity. That notification came August 1st with a deadline of registering of August 2nd. So luckily my family had already had this conversation and talked about it all summer, and so it was an easy choice. Not a critique at all. Totally not a critique, just a concern is that due to the amount of school that students at Bartlett miss to participate in sports at Kennett, that's a big decision to make in 24 hours. When you don't know your advisor, you don't know your school schedule, you don't know what classes you're taking, you don't know which classes, most importantly, you're missing, because you're missing almost 2 classes every single day in order to participate. And my concern is that a student signs up, goes to preseason, participates for 3 weeks, is part of that team, is so excited, first day of school, meets with the advisor, sees their schedule, and realizes that maybe this isn't a good fit for that student. So it's just observations. And that's the current situation. I'm very hopeful that there'll be a survey that comes out in the fall asking families if there's going to be sports in the fall. I'm very hopeful that we'll get sports up in the winter time as well for Bartlett. That's kind of the 30-second snapshot. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pam the owl is finally seeing you, but I can't see anyone else.
There you go. No one else is saying anything, Jess.
Okay, all right. Okay, I don't believe we have a non-public session this evening, so with that, we'll just look for a motion to adjourn.
So,
I'll second that.
Second? Okay, James? Your vote?
I vote to
Any
adjourn.
motion? Melinda,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Thank you, everyone, for all your work and help and input, and we will see you in September.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye, Jess.
I think I was just but that wasn't, it wasn't.
So we were trying to transition that over. So